Well, here we are getting started on the mechanical part of disassembling this car. And this is every part's fun, but this part is particularly gratifying as every time I take something off, I get to inspect it and find out what I'm really up against in the rebuild of this car. Now, I love volunteer help. I was volunteer help at one time myself, and this young man named Angel he came here from Spain, and he got his college degree, and he is a trained aerospace engineer, and he loves racing. And I met him through a friend, and he wanted to get involved in the project, and I'll take any help I can get. So he sat on one side, and I sat on the other, and we started disassembling from the front of the car rearward by taking off the front suspension. You know, the Swift is an American-made racing car, and one thing that's nice about that is everything is SAE. So I've got both sets of tools, obviously, but it's kind of nice. I'm so used to having to grab everything metric and understand everything's in metric. But uh, this being American, this is the first American-made racing car that I've ever worked on, and I really like that. You know, as we're disassembling the car, obviously we're taking note of condition and any defects that might be there. And we did notice that the left front spindle uh, was not properly torqued on the other side of the car. And these are the kinds of things we want to discover along the way. This is one of the reasons I wanted to come home from the racetrack and just go through the thing from tip to tail, just to make sure everything is right. Okay, a little video update. Last night we spent a little time working on the car and started the actual mechanical disassembly part. So we've removed the what do we remove? We removed the well, there's everything we removed. We removed the uprights on the outside, took the brake rotors off, the brake calipers, the upper rocker arms, the lower A arms, the toe links, and the rocker links, I think they're called, and the coilover shock unit. So honestly, a couple of good things that came out of this. One was the thing seems to be in good condition, just as I predicted. I think mechanically the car's in very good shape. These parts that are on the floor here just need a good cleanup and inspection, and maybe re-anodizing, and they're ready to go back on the car. So pretty happy about that. My partner, Angel from Spain, helped me last night. He is a very good worker, understood the car pretty well and the process, and a good guy to be around. So anyway, got to pull the sway bar assembly units out of here, and the steering rack, and the pedal assemblies, and all that stuff. We'll just keep working at it. So we're getting there. Being a child about this kind of thing, I decided I would go ahead and start up the motor just one more time. The thing's going to be quiet for a long time, and I just plain love the sound of it. So, hooked up the jumper battery, pulled the tape off the carburetor, and let her rip. And so begins A long silence. You know, these pedal assemblies in this foot box is the smallest foot box I've ever seen on a Formula car, and there's not a lot of working room up there, frankly. I struggled pretty much getting the brake master cylinders out because of the linkage for the brake bias adjustment. There's got to be a better way to do it than the way I did it, but anyway, I was able to get it out without damaging anything. I also got the clutch master cylinder out here and just removed the pedals and cleared out the front foot box. One thing I don't like about the foot box in the Swift is it is so narrow that there's no dead pedal. There's no place to put your left foot when it's not on the clutch. And you really have, when you're driving the thing, you really have to work to keep your foot off the clutch. I'm going to see if there isn't some way I can remedy it. I'd really like to have a place to rest my foot to make sure that I'm not riding the clutch inadvertently. And here's a couple hours work on the bench ready to be packed away for storage.
Well, the things that you find when you're disassembling a racing car. This is on a bulkhead around the fuel cell, and I started to peel back this piece of tape. It seemed to be here for no apparent reason. And here's what you find. Now, I had forgotten about this, but the guy I bought the car from mentioned it, that it was there when he bought the car. Not so sure how long it's been with the car, but it's going to stay with the car. Look, I'm not a superstitious person, not at all, but I do believe in Jesus Christ. This is just a piece of metal, but I like it, so I'm going to carry it with me.
You know, the basic philosophy I'm using in disassembling this car is to take off the next easiest thing. That whatever is the easiest thing to come off, in no specific order, but whatever comes off easiest next is what comes off. And I'm keeping a running list of the order in which everything is taken off. And in the end, I'll turn around and go the other direction. And I've checked this out with some other guys who have done it, and they all say the same thing. Leave the wiring harness and the brake lines and all those things in. That should be the last thing that comes off the chassis. And I thought about that already. That I thought, you know, that would be a disaster, I think, to try and plumb the thing and wire the thing after it's reassembled. So once it's all taken apart, the last thing that will come off will be the plumbing for the brake lines and the wiring for the wiring harness. And I'll decide at that point if I want to redo the wiring harness or not. I think it's a pretty good harness. He protected it very well, so it could be that it could be used again. So we'll see. I guess as an example of the order in which I should have done things, I probably should have detorqued these things before I removed the uprights. But, you know, it all has to come apart one way or the other. And I made some notes in the notebook about this order so that I'll leave these things somewhat loose until everything's back together and I can torque it properly when it's assembled on the car. You know, both of these rear uprights have welds on them. Apparently, they've been broken in the past. You know, a 30-old race car has probably seen some action at some point or another. So once these things are completely disassembled and cleaned up thoroughly, then I can really do an inspection for cracks and whatever other methods are out there. I don't know if there's anybody Zyglowing anymore or whatever crack detections are out there. I want to see if I can make sure these are good and sound before I put them back on the car. By the way, that little brass hammer, I made that in shop class in 7th grade. Never throwing anything away, that's what I always say. Just to make things easy in the future, I always try to put bolts back where they came from, along with whatever washer stacks come along. And on these bolts, of course, not only do you have the washers top and bottom, but you have spacer washers, and you've also got the hats that go inside the rod ends. So you know, just to keep from getting those mixed up, I put them back in because I'll rebuild those lower A arms and upper rocker arms as a unit. I'll set them aside separately and completely disassemble them, clean them all up, have them re-anodized, and then reassemble them properly. Of course, I'll take a lot of measurements before I do that to make sure that they get fairly close. So when we reassemble the car, we're not too far off on the alignment. Once everything is disassembled, um, I put it up on the bench, and at the end of each session, I store everything. I tag it and wrap it up, and I take it down in from the basement for storage. And I'm numbering everything so that I know what to grab and bring it back up when it's ready to be reassembled. Here I'm using some Chip Ganassi storage bags for my uprights, and should be pretty easy to find down in the basement. Hey, thanks for watching Project Swift. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and we'll see you next time.